It started the way all her storms did, quiet, calculated, disguised as a normal day. Mom called early that morning. Her voice was sweet, fake like always. "Bring the boy over. I need help with groceries." I hesitated. "He's got homework, Mom. I'll come later." She sighed sharply through the phone. "You always have excuses. He should be learning to be useful." Useful. That word she'd used my whole life like a curse. I told Levi to grab his jacket. He was 8, small, gentle, the kind of kid who apologized to chairs if he bumped into them. I didn't want to take him there, but saying no to my mother never ended quietly. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are watching this video. When we arrived, the driveway was full. Her friends were there again, the church ladies who pretended to pray but gossiped like their lives depended on it. They were drinking tea on her porch. The moment they saw us, one of them whispered, "There's the mistake." Mom smiled like she hadn't heard. "Come in, dear. Try not to track dirt." Levi tried to hand her a drawing he'd made. Flowers and a crooked sun with "I love Grandma" scribbled in red marker. She didn't even look. "You wasted paper again?" she snapped. "You don't give gifts that look like garbage." He froze. His lips trembled, but he didn't cry. I wanted to grab his hand and leave, but before I could, she threw a pack of groceries at me. "You think I'm made of money? Go put those away. At least make yourself useful for once." Her friends laughed. I looked at her and asked quietly, "Do you ever stop?" She tilted her head, smiling coldly. "Do you?" I started unpacking silently. Then I heard it, the sound that made my stomach twist. A slap. A hard, echoing slap. Levi had accidentally knocked over a small vase on the coffee table. It wasn't broken, just spilled some fake flowers. Mom towered over him, her hand raised again. "You little brat! You touch nothing unless I say." "Mom, stop!" I rushed forward. She glared at me. "You should have taught him better." "Don't you lay another hand on him," I said, my voice shaking. Her eyes narrowed. "You don't give orders in my house." But she did. She always did. She grabbed Levi by the collar. He screamed, not because she hurt him, but because he saw her eyes, those flat, cruel eyes that had crushed me for years. I lunged, but she shoved me back into the wall. "He'll stay out of sight until he learns manners," she hissed. Before I could move, she dragged him toward the garage. Levi's tiny hands clawed at the doorframe. "Mommy! Stop it!" I yelled, but my words dissolved into panic. She opened the trunk of her old gray sedan. The smell of gasoline hit me as she threw him inside. He screamed, kicking, crying, pure terror. "Mom, open it!" I shrieked. "He can't breathe!" She turned, eyes glinting with pride. "You'll stay out of sight," she whispered to the trunk. "You embarrass this family enough." Then she slammed the lid. The sound was final. I pounded the metal with both fists. "You're insane!" She smiled at me like a queen on her throne. "Call me that again, and I'll lock you in there with him." I ran for my phone, but she snatched it. "You think anyone believes a jobless, single mess like you?" Levi's muffled sobs echoed through the garage. I could hear him calling for me, choking between cries. "Mommy, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." I screamed so loud the neighbors probably heard, but I didn't know one of them actually had. From across the fence, old Mrs. Patterson had seen everything, a retired nurse with a heart big enough for 10 lives. Within minutes, sirens broke through the silence. Mom's face drained when the flashing lights hit the driveway. "You called them?" she hissed. I didn't have to answer. The cops stormed in. "Ma'am, step aside." Mom tried to fake tears. "It's a misunderstanding. My daughter's unstable. She hurts the boy." They ignored her. One of them popped the trunk. Levi's face was red, streaked with tears. He bolted straight into my arms, shaking like a leaf. Mom stood there pale and furious. "You'll regret this," she muttered as they pulled her aside for questioning. I held Levi so tight I could barely breathe. The officer knelt down. "You're safe now, kiddo. You did nothing wrong." He nodded weakly, whispering, "Grandma said I don't deserve light." I swallowed hard. That night, they took statements. The neighbor confirmed everything. The officers left with warnings about pressing charges, but I knew how this worked. Mom always found a way to twist the story, always came back worse. She called 2 days later from a private number. I didn't answer, but her voicemail played. "You think you've won? I raised you. You owe me. When I'm done, you'll beg me to take you back." That's when I knew. This wasn't over, and this time I wasn't just going to survive her. I was going to make her feel everything she'd made me feel. Everything was about to change. The next morning, I kept my son home from school. I couldn't bear the thought of him flinching every time someone slammed a locker or called his name. He sat on the couch wrapped in my old hoodie, clutching his stuffed frog, eyes hollow. He hadn't said a full sentence since the trunk. I brought him hot cocoa, but he pushed it away. "She'll come again," he whispered. "No, baby. She won't," I said, but my voice cracked. I spent the next 2 hours staring at the wall while dialing every trauma counselor I could find. But the real damage wasn't just bruises. It was legacy. It was blood. My blood. And theirs. Then I heard it. Tires outside. A door slam. Laughter. I looked through the window. It was her. My mother. Standing beside her minivan in the driveway, arm in arm with my sister, Delilah, like it was just a casual brunch visit. "Let's see the little troublemaker," she chirped. I locked the door. My son scrambled into my room, hid under the bed. Bang, bang, bang. "Open the door, Cora. Don't make this ugly." Ugly? I cracked the door open just an inch. "You're not seeing him." "You think you're a mother now?" she snapped. "You're still the mistake that ruined my career." Delilah chimed in, smug. "You overreact to everything. He probably locked himself in there. He's a drama king, like his mother." My fists clenched, but I didn't shake, not anymore. "I'm calling the cops," I said. "Try anything, and you'll be the one in a cage this time." That's when Mom laughed again. "The neighbor already did, remember? And what happened? Nothing. They're not gonna arrest a sweet old grandma, honey. You don't scare anyone." But I did scare someone, myself. Because what if she was right? The officer who came last night gave me that look. The tired, half-hearted look. Family stuff. He filed the report, told me to keep an eye out. That was it. No arrest, no consequences. Just paperwork. But this wasn't family stuff. This was calculated cruelty. I closed the door in her face, and I knew that night this wouldn't end unless I ended it. So I made a call. Not to the police, not to a lawyer. I called Joel. Joel used to be my mother's contractor. A gruff, thick-bearded guy who knew every hidden crawl space in that cursed house. He also knew every secret she'd buried inside its walls, including the locked steel room she never showed off to guests. I hadn't talked to him in years. Last time was after Dad disappeared. Mom said he walked out. Joel said otherwise. I hadn't believed him then. I did now. "Joel," I said, voice shaking, "I need to know everything about that house. Everything she never wanted anyone to see." He went quiet, then muttered, "Meet me behind the old co-op market. Midnight. And bring gloves." That night, after tucking my son into my bed with a safety light and a baby monitor, I drove through the foggy back streets until I saw Joel waiting by his truck, arms crossed. "You ready for this?" he asked, handing me a flashlight, because once you see what's in there, you can't unsee it. We crept through the fence behind Mom's backyard. The back gate was still rusted, hanging off one hinge. Joel led me to the side wall of the basement, pulled out a brick, and revealed a second key, hidden all these years. When we got inside, the smell hit me. Mold, bleach, something else, metallic and cold. "This way," Joel whispered. He pulled open a false panel behind the water heater. There was a steel door with 4 locks. He opened it. Inside, there were shelves, and on those shelves, files, old camcorders, folders with names, photos of me as a teenager, my son, notes. One folder was labeled Corrections. I opened it. Inside were reports, therapy notes she forged, behavior charts about my son, letters supposedly from school staff, none of which I had ever seen. She'd been building a case, not just to humiliate me, but to take him. She was gonna file for custody, Joel said. Claim you were unstable, said you were dangerous, Cora, that the kid needed to be corrected early. She told me that, with a straight face. I dropped the folder. That was the moment. That was the moment the girl who once begged her mother to love her died. And something sharper took her place. Joel stared at me under the basement light. You want to take this to the cops? He asked. I shook my head. No, I've been calling cops since I was 8 years old. All they do is take statements. I'm done giving statements. He looked at me for a long second, then nodded once. Then what's the plan? I took a breath so deep it burned. We're going to give her exactly what she's been preparing for, only she'll be the one exposed. 2 weeks later, Mom hosted her annual charity brunch. Every year she gathered half the town, the same neighbors who whispered about her troubled daughter and that poor little boy. It was her stage. She loved her audience. And I was about to turn on the lights. I borrowed equipment from Joel's storage unit, small cameras, motion sensors, an old intercom transmitter. I didn't need to hack anything. Mom's own security system had an app. I'd helped her set it up years ago, and she'd never changed the password. Perfect Family 23. I knew every camera angle in that house, every microphone, every blind spot. The morning of the event, she called to gloat. We're having real guests today, not the kind you bring. Maybe stay away, dear? Wouldn't want you to embarrass us again. I smiled into the phone. Don't worry, Mom. You'll have everyone's full attention. At noon, the house filled with the smell of wine and lemon polish. She floated through the rooms in her pastel dress, flashing her practiced smile. People clapped as she talked about raising strong families. My stomach turned. I parked a block away and waited. Joel texted, "Cameras live." Then I opened the app. Every screen showed her, laughing, gesturing, sipping champagne, and every screen had an icon, record. When she stepped onto her back porch for her little speech, I switched to intercom mode. Her microphone crackled, just enough to make her pause. Then my voice filled the speakers. "Do you still lock children in trunks, Mother? Or do you prefer the basement now?" The crowd froze. She looked up, confused, scanning for the source. Who's doing that? Is that some joke?" I let the next line play, audio I'd pulled from her voicemails and old home tapes, her own voice hissing, "You'll stay out of sight. You embarrass this family enough." Her guests stared at her, mouths open. One woman whispered, "Is that you?" Mom's face drained of color. "Someone's editing! This is fake!" She waved her arms. "Turn it off." Joel, hiding by the fuse box, flipped the power switch. The porch lights went out, then flicked back on, and a new video began, footage from her garage camera. The night she shoved Levi into the trunk, her hand, his scream, the slam. You could hear her whisper, "You'll stay out of sight." The sound cut like glass. People gasped. Someone dropped a glass. The neighbor who'd called the cops that night covered her mouth and started crying. Mom stumbled backward, grabbing the railing. "That's... someone hacked..." But it was too late. Joel's truck pulled up to the curb. On the side was my company's name, Clearview Family Services. It looked like a cleaning crew arriving for work. They weren't there to clean. They were there to deliver envelopes to every guest with copies of those recordings plus her forged documents. By the time she realized what was happening, people were already leaving in silence. Phones out, faces pale. Her social world, her protection, collapsed before her eyes. The police came again, but this time they didn't come for me. They came for her. The neighbor gave her statement. Joel gave his. The footage was enough for a warrant. The fabricated files, enough for fraud. When the officers led her out in cuffs, she saw me across the street, holding Levi's hand. She didn't yell, didn't cry, just stared, as if the ground finally gave up pretending to hold her weight. Levi squeezed my fingers. "Is Grandma going away forever?" I crouched to his level. "She's going somewhere she can't hurt anyone again." He nodded slowly. "Good." Months later, I sold my mother's house. The same walls that hid her secrets paid for a real home for us. No fancy revenge, no viral glory, just quiet safety. Sometimes at night, I still wake up to the sound of that trunk slamming shut. But then I hear Levi snoring softly in the next room, and I remember it's finally open now. There's light, and she's the one locked away. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are watching this video.